I'm supporting this campaign because I think this is the wrong idea in the wrong location. I'm not against asphalt plants. We need to have industrial activity. We need to invest in the quality of our road network, but we don't need to place them in countryside areas. So one of my concerns here is industrial creep into the countryside. And that brings with it concerns about pollution. So a key concern here is the water runoff and also air pollutants. So there's a lot of very practical reasons why this is the wrong location for this idea.
And in terms of the location, is it right next to the incinerator plant?
It would be adjacent to it, yes.
And would it use things like heat from there?
It's got the capacity to do that, but when the incinerator was built, we were told that would be the end of industrial development along the A168. So I'm concerned that original promise is sort of now being put to one side. I don't want to see an industrial estate all the way up and down the A168.
It's Michael Emsley. I'm organiser for CATS, which is Communities Against Toxins.
And we're here today and we're talking about a proposal for an asphalt plant that would be sited next to the Allerton Park, a waste incinerator or waste recovery plant. And there's significant opposition. So today we've seen for a relatively small village, we've seen a significant turnout and also a significant turnout from the media and the local MP.
Yep.
Could you just tell us, just turn the clock back a bit, what's this plant all about?
The planning application was originally put in. The applicant was North Yorkshire County Council. Okay, now somewhere along the line that was either a mistake or they did want an asphalt plant. You've got to bear in mind asphalt's something the North Yorkshire County Council, or former North Yorkshire County Council, uses a lot of. So getting the material at a sensible price is obviously going to be useful, and presumably the commercial the rates that they would be able to charge would be something useful to them as well. Putting that aside, the proposal was then seen as being an ENV type of approval, which requires an EIA. Lots of numbers and things, letters here, but environmental impact assessment. That means that you've got to look at what damage it potentially could do, and there's an initial period that should involve the public but hasn't, where there's an agreement on the scope for that. Now I appreciate fully that some of these assessments might be such that you don't actually need to look at an aspect because it's not relevant, but I couldn't see many of the relevant aspects actually included in that agreement. So between North Yorkshire County Council and now North Yorkshire Council and the applicant, which is now a roadstone company, they have agreed not to look at a number of very, very important aspects, each of which we challenge. They've provided reports on noise, for instance. The generator of most of the noise is very high up in the plant. I've been asking for months from the agent of the applicant, Litchfield in Leeds, for them to tell me about what the sound source is and how big a source it is up in the top of the plant there at 20 metres high. That's what's going to carry through to everybody and cause the low frequency damage to people, which it will do. On top of that, the plant will produce a lot of dust. I've got a drone footage of flying over their existing, which would become their existing sister plant up at Barton. It's 25 miles away and it can produce double what it's producing now. So there isn't a grain of evidence that there's any fresh requirement. There's no extra capacity needed. It can all be serviced from up there. When we look at employment levels, the plant, and I've run very similar plants, I've run ready-mix concrete plants, batching plants, mortar plants, you name it, brick kilns, and all sorts of that same sort of industry. I'm an ex-quarry manager, I know all about it. It'll employ net on a busy day 2 people. It's all automatic, it's all very easy. You need a front-end loader driver and a batcher.
And in terms of what the plant does then, does this take, obviously it's tarmac for roads, isn't it? So it takes small... It grain, if you like.
Takes very fine dust, and it takes larger dust up until fairly large aggregate. But it's got to bond the two together with tar. And to do that, it needs a lot of volatile chemicals. Those chemicals need to be hot, and the whole lot needs to be mixed hot, and then allowed to cool and be transported relatively warm to where it needs to be. But all those volatile chemicals are used to introduce those two materials so they stick together, and after that they've done their job. And a bit like the old-fashioned glues that we used to purchase, you can smell all of that coming off, and those are toxins. They'll go into the air, we'll breathe them. Just down here, we've got parents behind who've got children who'll be breathing that in. There is no, for instance, benzene. There is no safe level for some of the benzene derivatives, none at all. So any of it that comes out is going to cause damage. Any of that goes on the ground, currently there's no planning proposal as part of the application for how to deal with surface water at all. It's just cited as being using the current existing waterways and water courses. So anything that gets spilt on the surface, we'll have a downpour like we've had recently. On that large concrete pad that it's on, it'll just wash into the local drains, and then it ends up in our drinking water because there's very large aquifers down there that supply us all.
And when you say an aquifer, then is that the water table? What is that?
That's
an
the water
underground
down
storage of water,
in the
isn't it?
exactly that underground stored water that serves a lot of the community in this area.
And the other thing that's been talked about is the methane production and the risk explosion of the site.
The particular site has a blast wall that surrounds a methane generator. That methane generator is taking methane gas from the landfill gas site, and I've run plenty of landfill gas systems myself. It's very dangerous. But that generation of electricity, okay, it's doing what it's got to do, but it's only about 15 yards from a well-used track that people walk on day in, day out and use the horses on.
Is that the bridleway to the left then, isn't it?
That's the one.
Yeah.
And the risk to those people is severe. They've designed a blast wall into that structure, part of the application, and that blast wall, I've asked for many months, could I have details of how well it's been designed, what the risk assessment for it is, what's the means by which they can announce a warning so that people can know about it, and is there an evacuation plan? None of that has been forthcoming at all.
And in terms of engagement then with the community and information, you've clearly done a lot of work on this. We've tried to do our due diligence as a publisher and contact both the planning company Litchfield and the company themselves, and we haven't had anything back. And we do that because we want to balance the story out, but we can't.
Well,
so what we can do is talk
totally,
to you.
and I fully appreciate that. And indeed, I've produced data and tried to make summary assessments of things. There's a lot of reports. Some aspects I wasn't sure and clear about, and I've asked for verification through the planners, which I was advised to do by the planning department, to Litchfields, which is the agent of the applicant rather, and I've had nothing back. So I've asked, I wanted to verify that I was using data in the correct way. I didn't want to not be fair and reasonable about things. It just seems to me that they feel it's a done deal, and that's from what people are saying locally. They feel that whatever we do, what anybody does, even with the objection from EA that it's going to damage the aquifers, that it won't matter. They say that North Yorkshire is going to approve it anyway, and that's so bad. The transparency is not good. You can't access easily this application at all. Even if you're on the right page, I've shown people where it is, you still can't get to it. And if you've got to it, trying to register an objection's nigh on impossible. So I'm lucky, I know how to get through things, and I've managed to send them directly to the planners, and the lady there's take them, which is great. And we've just gone over, yesterday I totaled them up, we're over 1,000 formal objections to what's been happening.
And if people want to support your campaign, or likewise oppose it, and they want to support the applicant, what can they do then? Is it still open for
it's
comment
still open.
Online?
We're allowed. There was a formal deadline for objections to be submitted, and I'm afraid my memory's gone a bit blank, but it's about 3 Wednesdays ago. Through representations from myself and local councillors, we've had a agreement from the planners that it will be extended right up until the time the actual planning officer writes their determination, either supporting or rejecting this applicant's and recommendation that goes to the committee. So the recent committee strategic planning committee was cancelled. Therefore, there was a lot of business already going in for that in December. That's likely to go into December's, and unfortunately, December is likely to go into January and so on. So it's probably going to be heard, this particular case, in February. It could even be quite a bit later. So that's where we're at the present.
And what will you be doing between now and then?
The next job's the hard bit. Getting public support has been relatively straightforward. People are up in arms about this. They don't want to see it happen. They understand the risks and the problems to the kids. So now we've got to become very deliberate. We've got to look at every aspect of the planning application and address each of these planning issues. What we're also going to do is look at all the areas that were outscoped by the planners and the applicant, and we're going to address each of them and demand that they are covered. For instance, recently we wrote to Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, who put a blanket no comment back in when they were consulted about this application. They've now realised they were incorrect, they've done a formal objection, and they've cited why it's damaging to the environment.
So in other words, there's a lot of work in consolidating.
A lot of head work now needs, a lot of deep thought, lots of good consideration. I personally am going to all of the local meetings, the parish council meetings, explaining in detail exactly what's happening and asking them to reflect on it. And so far, 100% of them I've been to see have decided to raise a formal objection.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that's been
Thank you.
really
I appreciate it.
interesting.
Thanks for good questions. Thank you.